Title of the topic of today is the use of GIS for health responsive planning and management of urban green spaces. And as I mentioned, I would start with the beginning, that what is GIS at all? The GIS is the abbreviation of Geographic Information System, which is a framework for gathering, managing, and analyzing data. Rooted in the science of geography, GIS integrates many types of data. It analyzes spatial location and organizes layers of information into visualizations using maps and 3D scenes. With this unique capability, GIS reveals deeper insight into data, such as patterns, relationships, and situations, helping users make smarter decisions. By GIS, we can do a lot of things. For example, we can identify problems. I inserted as illustration this map about a national park where the hiking trail conditions are seen, so we can identify the problematic trails. Also, you can create such a conflict map, a land use map identifying different conflict areas. But besides problem identification, you can use GIS for monitoring change over time. For example, in an area or in a city, you can manage, respond to events, you can perform forecasts, you can set priorities, deciding where you want to do an action or do developments first and what are the less urgent ones in an area, and you can understand the trends. How GIS works? There is three main elements: maps, data, and analysis. Maps are the geographic container for data layers and analytics you want to work with. GIS generates many different kinds of data layers using spatial location. Most data has geographic component, and GIS data can include imagery, features, and base maps, which are linked to spreadsheets and tables. I'm not super experienced, but what I have seen in my career or shorter career so far is that many municipalities collect GIS data and manage data and maybe also visualize them on maps, but maybe not all the cases or not every municipality exploit the opportunity of analyzing them. And I think this is an important part, and we can learn in this regard more. Special analysis lets you evaluate suitability and capability, estimate and predict, interpret and understand, lending new perspectives to your insights and support decision making. But how this whole GIS topic came into the Health and Greenspace project, why we dedicate time for this and find it useful to talk about. Most of you are from the Health and Greenspaces project, but I know there are also stakeholders from other cities or other regions outside the partnership. So I'm telling that in the scope of our project, Health and Greenspace, two groups of measures are investigated. So we are looking for solutions for these questions or fields. This is the health responsive design of urban green spaces, such as the development of new green infrastructures, or there have like to find solutions or practices how to manage green spaces, for instance, involving residents in the maintenance of public green spaces. For these, I hope you are with me. Okay. For these measures, or one of these measures could be GIS, and I would like to explain three examples for GIS analysis, which are related to these topics. The first one is an analysis of evaluating urban green spaces according to their ability to promote physical activity. The second one, an analysis to which help you to decide which places in your city is good to create a new green space. And finally, analysis which can support you to involve residents in the maintenance of public green spaces. Starting with the first one, in our project, this is an important question, that how we can measure the health benefit of urban green spaces. And maybe not, this GIS is not the answer, but can help us to go closer, as measuring the ability of urban green spaces to promote physical activity also means just covering, okay, also means measuring the health benefit of green spaces from this point of view. So with such analysis, we can highlight the problems, why some green spaces cannot really encourage people to move or do sport or do activities there, but others yes. And what should we develop inside of green spaces, like installing a fitness park, or what should be improved outside the green space, like improving the accessibility. For such an analysis, or ever you explain briefly what does it mean, what are the steps of multi-criteria analysis when you consider different attributes, different indicators together to make evaluation. As the first step, you identify your attributes which you want to investigate. Then you develop indicators which can represent best the attributes, considering also the availability of special data, which can be used for developing the indicator. Then you decide what is the weight of each indicator in your analysis, how important they are compared to each other in terms of promoting physical activity. Finally, you visualize special indicators on different maps, and then you overlay all the maps accumulating the values of each pixels received at each indicator. What is the final result? Is basically one map which shows areas which are more and areas which are less promote physical activity according to the indicators we included into our analysis. I don't know how much you are with me. Hopefully you could follow. Let's see a little bit in details or with examples. So we first identify attributes, and if we are evaluating a green space, usually from the point of view of how it supports activity, the attributes can be accessibility, quality and size, basic infrastructure, recreational facilities, facilitated sport activities. And each of the attributes can have different indicators, and of course these indicators differ city by city. For example, at accessibility, one indicator can be the number of public transport stops in 400-meter walking distance from the border of the green space. Or at basic infrastructure, an indicator can be the path density. Or recreational facilities, the number of playgrounds and the fitness parks. So if we manage to have our attributes and indicators identified, we can visualize on a map. I brought one example. This is not what I prepared. These maps and analysis prepared by a Salzburg-based organization. They evaluated the recreational value of their green spaces in the Salzburg region. They applied these indicators and visualized in a map. I just a bit highlight the legend. So there is the high recreational value green spaces and the medium recreational value spaces, and they calculated it based on a lot of indicators. So something like this could be a final result. The second type of analysis I selected to talk about or discuss with you is when you evaluate your whole city looking for the best place for a new green space, and you have a lot of data and information about your city to make such an evaluation, and taking in consideration a lot of aspects which determine that which places are good to create a new green space there and which are not really. The logic and the steps of the analysis is the same like the previous one, identifying attributes, indicators, creating maps, overlaying on each other. Here, of course, indicators and attributes are slightly, different. For example, the ownership can be a crucial attribute and indicator because you would like to work on municipality-owned areas. It can be an important element like the areas which has very strong heat stress, and you would like to tackle it, so you try to create green spaces where this is a very big issue. Similarly to noise pollution, you would like to find the missing element of the city's ecological corridor and place a green space there. The last attribute I included here is a social function. So how people are currently use the city, and maybe if people are already used this way, we can support them to use even more. And so the current use by people of the space is also can be an indicator and an attribute. In this regard, I brought an example which I think very interesting, so I didn't want to skip it. This is a research from the University of Eindhoven, where a student created these heat maps based on GPS trace of running route in Ghent and Antwerp. These data came from these running watch companies. Magically, she managed to get these personal user-generated data and visualize where people run mostly. Also created this heat map of Eindhoven region, where people run during the daylight and how it changed after sunset. And you can notice that obviously not all the streets and all the area of the city is run capable after the night, and it might make us think or make decisions and think to improve the lighting different streets to make possible people to move there. So I think the user-generated data and data from citizens, information from citizens can be equally useful for GIS analysis. The third topic I brought is, or research, is basically my research related to my master thesis, where I tried to create, which is related to the maintenance of green spaces and the involvement of residents into this work. Basically, I created a GIS methodology by which we can identify and categorize urban green spaces according to their suitability for their inclusion in a community governance program, such as the stewardship program. The stewardship program is the program of Hegyvidék, and I think most of you might have heard about it as a good practice. The goal of the program is to involve residents into the maintenance of public informal green spaces. I mean, these street greens, so not the big parks, what we are talking about. And if you manage to look the small pictures, you can have an idea what kind of green spaces we are talking about. What did I do? I tried to identify different indicators which determine that one place in a city can be a stewardship area or not really, or not ideal. I visualized all these indicators, which I discussed with Hegyvidék on maps, and finally I give all areas some kind of value, overlaid each other, and the suitability map was the result. in order to be closer to real life and less less to the scientific life, I obviously distracted from the final map those areas which absolutely cannot be stewardship area, like the protected areas, the not public spaces, and formal green spaces. And to see a little bit more from the tiny lines, I zoomed in, and basically this is the version where you can see more and see that, okay, here is a place and this seems to be a good stewardship area. Obviously, the map is a help, but don't tell the truth. You need some local knowledge and you need to go to the field and see that whether it's really as good area as my analysis showed it. But anyhow, the map narrowed down the scale where you need to look for. How the different maps are produced and the final map can be applied by municipalities. I think there is 3 ways. This analysis can be practical, not just scientific. For example, if a municipality would like to discover or select stewardship areas, launching the program from the beginning, and would like to start to see where this program could start at all. It's also possible that residents knows about this program and select an area, go to the municipality and tell that I would like to take care of this area, and the municipality can check on the maps whether the area is appropriate to be given to the steward. So is it owned by the municipality, it's not protected, and there is no other obstacles to give them. The third option, if a steward goes to the municipality, said, I heard about this program, I would like to join, I live here, I'm not sure that which area I can take care of, could you give me an advice? And the municipality looking into the map, the surrounding of the address of the steward, and can give some options, suggestions. So this how research could possibly applied in practice. And finally, I would like to summarize some tips how this is more for the project partners of Health Greenspace. I just mentioned for the stakeholders who are here that in Health Greenspace project, the final output of the project is an action plan. So I sought to include some tips for partners how to use GIS in the project developing the action plan. But obviously it can be relevant for other type of plans in other municipalities. So, for example, you can use for decision making. I think if there is a GIS expert in your municipality, it can be good to involve them in the work on the action plan. So this expert can produce for you relevant maps. These maps can help you to decide on and elaborate your actions, and also can justify your actions with maps, therefore with database information. So your action is not just based on your idea, that's what would be good, or the idea of the stakeholder what would be good, but you can support with database information and reinforce a little bit the relevance of your action. You can use it for communication. You might visualize your actions on maps and use the maps as a communication tool to share the main messages of your action plan. Your action plan is written in English, and maybe in your municipality cannot everybody read it or understand it. But if you have a map or if you have a visual element that can more grab the attention of people and hopefully support the understanding of your action plan. You can use maps for co-creation. I mean, you can use in GIS analysis quantitative data, but also data from citizens. And you might apply an online map-based survey to discuss your actions with the citizens, or one of the element of your actions. And we will show one tool for this Maptionnaire platform. Just came into my mind that you might make a small-scale action about testing this Maptioner online platform. So you can implement it fully inside or test inside your project. If we go back to the traditional way of planning and mapping, you can also apply printed maps during, say, OLG meetings. Personally, I haven't tried it yet, but I heard about, and it's also an interesting experiment to organize a group work with stakeholders when we can finally be together and arrange or organize a discussion around the printed map, and people can draw there and point there, and the information what they say is seen that which place of the city we are or they are talking about. And finally, if this session of today was convincing for you, and you say that you would put more resources, energy, and expertise into a more extended GIS analysis, maybe one of your action plan action is such a research. And I think Johanna from ESPO will show some examples for more extensive research in this regard. Thank you for your attention.